Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Intrepid Investor Podcast with your host, Vanessa the Investor. Today we are talking all things SMSF. There was a huge announcement last week from the federal budget, from the government, from the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, saying that he is now saying no more to SMSF, to buying a residential property within your self-managed super fund. Now, what does that mean? When does that run out? What does it mean for people that have super funds and have property in them? What does it mean for people who have super funds and were in the process of buying a property? And what does it mean for people that were thinking about opening a super fund and now are thinking, maybe not? I'm going to dive into all of that in today's episode. And I really hope that it gives you a bit of clarity today, that you can step forward knowing your next step and not being so scared about what the government is saying, what the media is saying, because a lot of these announcements lately have been against investors. A lot of them have been trying to even the playing field, as they say, and I'm not buying that. That's all bullshit. But at the end of the day, we can't control it. It's not our choice. It's not in our control. And so we need to find ways to make investments work for us, to make them actually still create wealth. And there are still ways around it. There's always going to be ways around it. We just have to think strategically. So where did this all come about? Basically, last week on the 26th of July, 2026, Jim Chalmers turned around and said that they are banning limited recourse borrowing arrangements, which is the only way that you can use a loan, that you can have a loan within your self-managed super fund for residential properties. So that means that you can no longer buy a residential property, as the only means to have bought one with a loan is through this LRBA system. So they're getting rid of that for residential property. Now, does this mean that commercial property is affected? No. Commercial property can still be bought with an LRBA. So that is unaffected. The SMSFs only that are using loans to buy residential properties are affected. So if you have enough money in your SMSF to buy the property without a loan, again, you're not affected. You could still purchase residential property without a loan. But when it comes to using a loan, you cannot. Now, they're telling us that we only have until the 10th of August to actually purchase that property in your SMSF. So if you already have an SMSF, a self-managed super fund, already set up, great. You have 45 days from the 26th of June, from the 26th of June until the 10th of August, so until really midnight, the 9th of August, to get a contract signed on a property. You don't have to settle, you don't have to go unconditional, you just need signed contract for a property bought under your SMSF, and you will be able to purchase that property. Now, if you were thinking about this and haven't even spoken to your accountant about it, talk to them yesterday. Like right now, pick up the phone, talk to your accountant. If your accountant hasn't done an SMSF before or isn't very familiar with the SMSF process, please do not waste their time or yours. Move on to an accountant that is specific in SMSF. And if you don't know anyone, please reach out. I'd be happy to share you my connections in the SMSF accountant world. I know some amazing accountants that they'll bend over backwards to get you that account before the 45 days. And then hopefully you can purchase a property within that time as well. Now, if your goal was always to purchase a commercial property in your self-managed super fund, then winning this doesn't affect you at all. You continue doing what you were going to do past the 10th of August, no problem. If you already have property in your SMSF, again, winning. You've already done the hard work. You've gotten that property. Well done. Congratulations. Not everyone is as lucky as you are. And you just hold that bad boy. You hold that property down. Only sell in your SMSF if it can upgrade. Well, if you're going into retirement, obviously. But if you can upgrade it to a commercial property. If you have bought an SMSF property from young and it's now grown a lot, that's when I would make the switch into commercial, because commercial, you will actually be making money off the SMSF property instead of paying it off. And you'll be getting a lot higher rent with lower risk of vacancy rates, of any damage done to the property. Like, all of these things fall onto the tenant in commercial property. So it's very risk-free and I guess low maintenance, where you don't have to fork out money for that property. So now you know who this affects. And I just want to say that it affects me personally as well. I was planning to buy an SMSF property next year after we saved a little bit more money in our super. And yeah, I guess that's not the plan. But for us, the plan will be to save up and then purchase a commercial property. So we're just going to go with our self-managed super fund. When we get enough money in our current super funds, then we'll combine them into a self-managed super fund and buy a commercial property. That's going to be our next goal when it comes to that now. So see, we're not just, okay, cool, killing the dream, we're never going to get an SMSF because there's no point anymore. No, we still see value in it. We still see that this is going to provide for our future. And so this is going to get created just at a later date, more savings. But in the meantime, our managed super fund is just working its way up anyway in the background. So not entirely depressed about it, but obviously we had to change our strategy a little bit. And that's what I really want to talk about today. It's not a lost case. It's not a lost cause. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be wealthy. It doesn't mean you're not going to retire well. It just means that we need to shape the course, change the course that we originally had planned. So, why did the government do this in the first place? Honestly, I do not understand it. Like, at all. I understood the negative gearing to a degree. Again, so stupid, but anyway. I understood the capital gains tax to a good degree. So these ones were done so that it could deter investors from purchasing those established properties, and basically also wanting for investors to sell now before the middle of next year, so that there's more opportunity and more supply out there for the buyers, for home buyers. This one though, self-managed super fund properties count for less than 1% of residential borrowing. Less than 1%. And of all the properties in Australia, they count for less than 14%. That is nothing. That is not going to help the hundreds of thousands of people that are looking for properties. What it helps is the middle class that are trying to build themselves a future, that are putting in their hard-earned money into these other ways because they know that, hey, I'm not going to get the pension. I need to look after my future. What about my children? And this was a way for them to do it. And now the government's like, yeah, nah, you know what? We're going to level the playing field. You guys, you work hard, but you shouldn't be working so hard. So we're actually going to get rid of that. And then you can just be like everyone else. So that's actually my 2 cents. I wasn't exactly expecting to give you my little, I guess, 2 cents on how I feel about this whole situation. But obviously I'm not a fan. I'm an investor and I want to win, and I want everyone else around me to also win and to become super wealthy. And that includes the non-believers as well. But you know, that's just the way it is right now. And the government is really trying to support those people that purely believe buying a home is a right. And I'm not saying it's not, but I am saying that investment is also a right, because these days we cannot get by on our 9-to-5 salary alone and have the life that we want and the life that we dream of and the retirement that we want and going into early retirement. None of that really seems possible without setting ourselves up properly with investments. So we find ways around it. So that's what the government basically, the reason that they are doing it really is to level the playing field, more or less. And obviously they think that this is all going to have an impact on the current situation where people are going to be not buying properties in their SMSF funds, which means that they are going to then allow the home buyers into the market in place of them, which is not how it works. But anyway, let's just pretend that's a logical reason. Now, I want us to zoom out. I want us to look at the bigger picture here, because all of these little announcements that are happening have actually happened before. Not the SMSF one, okay, that one's a new one, but the negative gearing, getting rid of that, it's happened in New Zealand and in Australia before, and within 2 years it was gone. We have seen capital gains go high, maybe not this high before, but it's reached the 50%, which again was one of the highest in the world, and investors are still making money off property, off shares, off their businesses. So I guess we've seen things, we've seen recessions, we've seen global financial crises, we've seen tax changes, we've seen the first home buyers scheme, we've seen land tax reforms, we've seen the changes in interest rates, and now we are seeing SMSF lending reforms. But through all of this, through all of history, property prices have been going up. I've been saying this actually quite a lot in all of my episodes lately, and I guess I'm finding myself very repetitive, and I'm like, I hope I'm not boring the audience, but I just feel like everyone really needs to hear this again. Property prices still always went up. And even with the noise of, oh my gosh, Melbourne and Sydney have gone, prices have dropped, auctions aren't clearing, all of these things, that isn't exactly the full picture. And I don't want to get full into that right now. I did put up a post on Instagram today about it, and basically saying that actually that is for properties that are above the 2 million range. That doesn't actually go for the properties that are where first home buyers are buying sub 1 mil. Those sub 1 mil properties are still increasing in price, and they still have high demand and low supply, which means we keep growing the price. So when you hear, the market's fallen, auctions are gone, the reason auctions have slowed down is because buyers, and actually first home buyers, do not want to buy properties with unconditional loans. That's really why. And because they haven't gotten a full approval before they get there. They need to do a building and pest inspection. There are all these things that people want to do, and a lot of these first home buyers need to do to actually purchase the property. I don't think a mortgage broker will say to a first home buyer that's almost maxing out their financial borrowing capacity, I don't think they're going to say, go unconditional. No, they're going to say go conditional or drop your price. So don't just think because you hear these tiny little things from the news that the whole property market in the whole of Australia is crashing. It's not true. Perth is still going up. Southeast Queensland is still going up. Darwin is still going up, and Adelaide is still going up. Melbourne and Sydney are in a different game right now. They're on a different cycle. And you know what? The fact that they're going down is actually a great time to buy in Melbourne and Sydney if you can afford those above $1 million properties, because those are the ones that are slowing down, not the prime sub 1 mil ones. How do I know? Because I'm actually buying properties in Victoria right now for my clients, which are sub 1 mil, and every time I go to talk to the agent, within a couple of weeks, the property is off the market because it has gone under offer. The property market is still going up. Like I said, zoom out, this has happened before and property prices went up. The reason property prices move in the long term, it's due to the demand versus the supply. If there is low supply, limited supply, and the demand is growing faster than the supply of houses can keep up with, there is a shortage. And when there's a shortage, it means that the prices are going to go up. They have become scarce. They are something that people want and there's not enough of. It is rare. That's basically how the property is seen, and that is why the prices go up. And until the government tries to level that playing field by accepting more building approvals, doing faster builds, putting in different monocentric cities, so cities like they've done Parramatta, Geelong, Gold Coast, these cities were all sub-cities to the major cities. Sorry, I said cities like a billion times there. But you understand what I'm saying. You had Melbourne, then you made Geelong. You had, now we've got a bit of Mornington as well. I feel like that's becoming the next big city in the Victoria, Metro, Melbourne region. Then you have Sydney, they created Parramatta. Now, then you had Brisbane, they created Sunshine Coast and Gold Coast. These were never meant to be huge cities, but obviously population got there, and so they provided the right resources in these areas to help stimulate the growth, and it worked. They just need to create more of those. And the more of those you create, the more people will actually want to move to those areas. Because right now, if you're building about 2-3 hours out of Melbourne or Perth or Sydney or Brisbane, that's not near one of those cities, no one wants to live there. No one wants to live in the middle of Australia. So you need to be building in areas that are appealing, and they're just not doing that. So how do they expect people to actually want to live in those areas to then bring in people there and then increase the supply so that it matches and the prices don't go too crazy, which is what you want for first home buyers. That's actually what you want. And then eventually they can move inland. I know this isn't going to be close to the cities that they want to live in, but at least they have a chance. At least they can buy something. Right now, it's very difficult for them to buy that whole house dream in the cities that they want. You can buy apartments, you can buy townhouses. There are definitely options. And I think that a lot of first home buyers aren't looking at those options because they just want the dream house. They want the Australian dream. But you either need to reconsider, buy whoop whoop, or buy that, or the alternative, which would be the government creates an awesome new city that everyone flocks off to. But anyway, I'm not here to give the ideas to the government and get them to start actually making a change. I'm just here to report on the mistakes that they've made, but how it hasn't actually changed the macroeconomic effect of property. Right now, things are happening because buyers have lost their confidence. And so everyone's just acting really like, don't want to do that. No, sellers are thinking, oh shit, I've got to sell because I don't want to lose out on getting my capital gains. And it's just a bit of that right now. So people are very uneasy. They're moving in weird ways. But eventually, give it 2-3 months probably, this will roll over and things will go back to how they were. And then eventually the cycle will keep moving. Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide are going to keep thriving. Melbourne, Sydney will stay stable, and eventually the tables will turn. Melbourne and Sydney will thrive again, and Brisbane and Perth will go back down to being stable. That's just how it works. That's the property cycle every few years. I don't think that's going to happen until after the Olympics, especially with Southeast Queensland, but you never know. But in any case, property prices will keep going up until supply meets and exceeds demand. What I want to do right now is to actually give you a quick guide as to what types of SMSF properties you should be looking out for if you have an SMSF already set up and you have 45 days, well, less than now. You've got until the 10th of August to purchase a residential property with your SMSF. Because there are certain things that you need to know when you purchase an SMSF. Number one, we need to find something that's low maintenance. You could buy an off-the-plan property with an SMSF. I don't know how it works lending-wise, but basically that is a good investment for an SMSF if it is in a good growth area, an established area, an area that we know is thriving and will always be thriving because of the type of area that it is. So buying off the plan in the middle of nowhere where the first home buyers should be buying right now is a no-go. That's not good for an SMSF. Buying a property that is less than 10 years old in an established area, may have had a recent renovation, that's your type of SMSF property that you want to be looking at. It's close to public transport. It has low vacancy rates. So we're talking about vacancy rates of less than 2.5%. What this means is basically no one is really leaving. There's not a high turnover of tenants. You have your tenants and they stay with you for most of the time. And then when they do leave, there's quickly another tenant that wants to come in. So your rate of being vacant is very low amount of days that it's vacant. You want something, so with the low maintenance, something that you don't have to do renovations to, not even cosmetic. Like you don't want to be touching this for the 10 years, 20 years that you hold the property. You really want it to be in that condition that will last that long. Obviously you have your general wear and tear, but do not buy an SMSF property that has immediate construction needs. immediate cosmetic renovation needs. No. You want it to be ready. You want it to be in a good condition. The lower the maintenance, the better, because where's the maintenance money coming from? Your SMSF. All that money that you're putting towards your retirement is then going to be used to maintain the property. You don't want to do that, which also means you want to keep all your costs low. You want to keep your land tax fairly low. We can't control that, but try to get into an area that doesn't have too much land tax. You want to get a property that has no or really limited amount of body corporate fees. So again, looking at properties that don't have swimming pools, that don't have high maintenance gardens, that basically are just very basic. They have a very healthy sinking fund, which means that the body corporate itself has got a lot of money to put towards maintenance of the property, so you don't have to fork out extra money, because again, where is that money going to come from? Your self-managed super fund, your retirement money. And so you want maintenance to be super low, expenses to be super low. And your main goal here is growth. You want it to be in a high growth area, medium to high growth. So it has to be more than the 6% average that happens in Australia. You want it to really do well. And then on top of all of that, you want the rental yield to be good. You want it to be healthy. I always say minimum 3.5%. And generally that works because within 5 to 6 years, you would have paid off not paid off your loan, no. And within 5 to 6 years, you will most likely become neutrally geared, which means after that, you're positively geared, which means then your residential property is actually making money. So now the money you're putting into the self-managed super fund is actually just increasing rather than being taken away for the bills, for the mortgage, for whatever else it is that you have to do to pay for that property. It is now paying off itself. And then over the years, it becomes positively geared, and then you're getting more income from that property. So how do you know where these places are? How do you know where to find places with low vacancy rates and all of that? I mean, there's heaps of investor websites. I use HTag. That is something you could use yourself. I'm not getting anything from them to be saying this. It's just a program that I use and I really enjoy it. You just find them online. But overall, I would just keep it super simple. Where is the money in Australia going to right now? Where is it that people like to live? Where is it that you're seeing is a good suburb that is something that has good socioeconomic background? It provides diverse opportunities for employment. So we're talking about, it doesn't just have a mining town, the worst investment ever. Do not purchase in mining towns. We're talking about universities, hospitals, infrastructure is being built. We're talking about expansions. The city actually has a plan for more population growth. Those types of areas are the ones that you will know will have lower vacancy rates, higher growth, higher demand. And don't forget, you want to limit your supply. So this is why we buy in established areas, because we want to be in an area that can't actually grow unless you subdivide the property and put in a townhouse or put in apartments. You have to grow on that particular land. There's not available land right next to it. Because when you find that kind of property that there's available land next to it, 9 times out of 10, within those 10 years that you have the property in your SMSF, there will be land with properties on it, which means the supply has gone up. And if we look at basic economics, when supply goes up and demand is still there, the price will not move. The price remains where it is. And potentially, if demand isn't quite there and there's just oversupply, the prices can actually go down. So this is why we look at established areas. Now, I've created a quick SMSF cheat sheet for you. This cheat sheet is going to help you with a list of what I just said. You can follow me on Instagram at Vanessa V Dallas and then send me a DM with SMSF and I will send you a link to that file. I'll also have it in the show notes, so please have a look through there and you can use the link to get that cheat sheet for yourself. Now, the final thing I want to cover off is what your SMSF can pay for and what it can't, because things like stamp duty, your deposit, conveyancing fees, your accountant fees, building and pest inspections, other loan establishment costs, these kinds of things aren't covered in the SMSF loan. They are covered in the SMSF cash that you have. So you have to keep this extra cash, which your accountant will tell you about, on the side to feed into that SMSF loan, which is why you need a certain amount of cash in the first place to buy an SMSF property. So they always say, well, what I've heard as a ballpark, minimum $200,000, which includes the expenses for all of those things plus some, so you can make those first few repayments without having to quickly put money into your SMSF. And one of the other things that you can use as well with your SMSF cash is to use a buyer's agent. So the SMSF cheat sheet will work for you if you are willing to look for the property and if you are really in the market, understand it, and know that you can turn over a property within 45 days because you've only got until the 10th of August. And after that, you will not be able to purchase a residential property in your SMSF fund. If you don't have the time, you don't have the knowledge, and you're like, I really need to get my act together and purchase this SMSF property ASAP, you might want to look into using a buyer's agent. Now, I've helped a lot of clients with their SMSF properties and helped them purchase the right ones. Like I said, I've ticked off all of those checklists, and I have spoken about these strategies with SMSF accountants, and they agree that this is the best way, the best type of property you can purchase for your SMSF when you're talking about residential property. So if you are interested in using a buyer's agent, in reaching out to me to use my services for the next 45 days until we get to the 10th of August, the sooner you get in touch, the better. And know that the fee that we charge to you can also be taken out from the cash in your SMSF. So if you do want to chat more about that, please send me an email, subject title SMSF help, and I will reach out. I will send you a link. You can book a strategy call with me and we can run through how I can help you through this journey because we are running out of time. I hope this episode really gave you an insight into SMSF properties. You understand what's happening now with the new regulations, and you understand how if you've got an SMSF already set up, you can still move forward with that with residential properties. If you don't, you've got something else to look forward to, a new goal to look forward to. If you have a property already in your SMSF, you know that you're in a safe place, so well done. And if you need extra help, please reach out. Like I said, I have the free cheat sheet for your SMSF properties, and I also am providing you with free strategy sessions with me to go through how we can get you that property within the next 45 days before the 10th of August. Stay positive, stay in control. You've got this. Keep moving forward and keep being intrepid investors. Until next week, bye for now.